could you please pronounce your name correctly for me?
Thameur Mejri.
And we're also joined today by
Amanda Maples.
and so Thameur. Gosh, I'm so bad with names. Thameur. Could you please give me a little bit of background? So, where was your family creative? Like, how did you come to being the artist that you are?
I'm born in Tunisia, in North Africa. Tunisia is situated in North Africa. It's an Arab country. I was born in 82, so now I'm 40 years old. And my background, we have my uncle from my mother's side. He's dead now. He was very old when he died. He was like a scenographer working on movies, TV shows in Tunisia, very famous like scenographer, and also an artist. He had his studio in Tunis, the capital, and I remember like he was doing his art like some kind of surrealism, Salvador Dali style, René Magritte style. And I remember the first time like I visited when I starting remembering now at 5 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old. I remember my mother taking me to see her brother. So she took me with her every time to his studio. And the first impact of entering his studio and seeing my uncle like sitting on his chair surrounded by the paintings he did, and the smell of oil and of all the studio of an artist, and the brushes. The person, they visited him when I was there by surprise, all like from fine art schools, movie directors, so other artists. So I was like witnessing that, and in my mind from that age, 5 years old, as I remember, I told myself, if I will grow up, I will be like my uncle. I'll be an artist like my uncle. And I didn't know really what does it mean to be an artist. I thought he was only just painting images. It's fun for a kid, to work like when you grow up, you will be like just painting and drawing. This is your work. So it was like, for me, it was like appealing, like fascinating. So, and me too, I was like a shy boy, shy kid, and very like introvert, very attached to my mom back then. So I was drawing by myself too, So I was like some kind of boy that when you give him like a paper and a pen, he will start drawing all the day. So it was like, it meant to be that one day I will be an artist. So from that age, it seems like it's in a movie, it's a story in a movie, but it's the truth. So from that young age, from 5, 6 years old, I was like, my dream was to be like my uncle and be one day to be an artist.
How has that worked out for you? Do you still have that same romantic impression of the arts industry now that you are active in it?
Yes, because I'm aware of all the what's going behind the art market, and working with galleries, with institutions, with collectors. But in the same time, I try to keep that naive side of me, like that child never dies inside of me. I still that boy, but wearing like a man's suit. That's it. So just to keep creating and still creative as a person, and like enjoying the process. Because when you think like as an adult and like only in the professional side, it's very hard and it's very complicated to be in this domain of work. It's very stressful. I feel that stress because I'm very ambitious too. So behind each ambition, there's always place for failure. So it's very hard for an artist like to deal with that. But my dreams are very big, and I believe in myself. It's very American attitude, I think. It's because like
Oh, no, it absolutely is. Yes, no, you're correct.
My father also played like a big role also on that, because my older brother, just for the information. He's a filmmaker. He lives in Canada, in Montreal. And my youngest brother, he's a photographer. He lives in France. So my brother, my father, I remember he took me to watch a movie in a theater, at age of 5 years old. So it was Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator movie, So imagine the impact of that kind of movie on a little kid like 5 years old. So it was like something for me. Like I still remember that day until today.
Do you still have
No,
nightmares?
I didn't
Is that
have.
what you're saying? Or?
Maybe the first days after watching that movie, but now he's my favorite. Maybe I've seen that movie 30 times or maybe more. And I think that movie introduced us to the American culture and the American dream and the American propaganda. But for us in that age, it was very important to open ourselves to Hollywood, to movie from Hollywood, to all that American mindset and approach of work and life and ambition and because we lived in Tunisia, it's a very small country. There's no ambition there, no structure, nothing. So at least it paid off, It paid off.
I love the term propaganda
you
used for it. I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, when it comes to ambitions, like when I was a kid, I always had the dream that I would have a retrospective at the Guggenheim by the time I was 50. That was always my life aspiration. Now, I'm only 1 year away from 50 and nowhere near a retrospective at the Guggenheim. But what kind of ambitions do you have? Because I'm interested because you come from a different culture, come from a different background. And so, I'm an American, but I'm also a practicing artist. We have sort of our inherent ambitional things. So like what were the aspirational or ambitional ideas that you had growing up in Tunisia?
I wanted to be because I was very attracted by music from America, like new metal. I was into that, like Slipknot, Korn, Metallica, all those bands. I like Nirvana, Pearl Jam. So, and starting from from the beginning of the 21st century, like the early 2000s years, I was a fan still now of the new wave of rock music coming from New York, like Interpol, The Strokes, the Yeah. When I was a student in Tunisia, that was the kind of music, the music I was listening to. I'm the best band for me is Interpol. For me, music of Interpol is something from other place. So I was my mindset. I was living in Tunisia, but my way of thinking and my vision of myself, it's still Western way of looking at life and ambition and reality and how you can it's okay to be ambitious because in Tunisia being an ambition they think of you as a fool, so but outside of Tunisia when you are in Europe or in the United States especially it's fair, it's legitimate to be have an ambition to. So I since a kid, because I was as I told you, I was an introvert kid, invisible kid. I was very skinny, very attached to my mom. So in my mind I was one day I always told myself I'm gonna be a star and all the people will try to speak with me, to take photos with me. It's very naive, but this was my goal, just doing something and being a rock star or a movie star or something like this, being under the light of media and people talking about you. I think it's to compensate that in that age, that side that you are not seen by people, you are introvert, you are invisible. But it paid off, with our the complex we hold in ourselves gives us the strength to achieve big things. And if I had a normal life and a normal existence and balanced existence, and I don't think that I would be doing this kind of art now. having those ambitions when I was still young,
Amanda, have just dominated. Do you have any questions?
No, but for me, when he was talking about Predator, it made me see your paintings in an entirely new light, and I'm never going to forget that. Every time I look at your paintings now, and there's those dismembered bodies and things like that, I'm like, oh, Predator. But also that sense of childhood. There's definitely those everyday objects that are peopling in there, and I'm just getting this whole new context of you and your work, and that for me is just a lot of it's fun. It just gives a whole level to it that I didn't have before. But not, yeah, I also into similar music. I think Interpol is coming soon to Raleigh. I'm really excited. I was going to go see that. So also, you have Chuck Taylor's in your work too. So you're speaking my language. I actually wanted to ask you if you're a skateboarder or anything like that, because
I would like to be a skateboarder, but now I think it's my brother, my older brother. He went to Montreal 14 years ago, so he was still like young. So he did skateboarding and all that stuff. But me in Tunisia, we don't have like, and I'm like, I'm very afraid of getting hurt, So when you see my paintings, you think that is someone like violent and like violence, and it's the contrary. I'm afraid of getting sick and her too. So I prefer like doing things in a safe way. I think safe. I take always the safe path to a thing. When I want to do a thing, I always take the safe path.
Well, is that also sort of, I mean, you have a daughter
yes,
now, a child of some sort.
Yeah.
So, yeah, is part of that safety, being a father as well? And I also wanted to ask, is there anything about, you had those really intense moments of memories from when you were 5. So how old is your daughter?
My daughter now, she's 8.5. So she's
Has she seen Predator?
No. And when I had my daughter, I started like looking back at my childhood, because I started comparing myself to my parents, and I told myself, what the heck, my dad really took me to see Predator when I was 5 years old. There's something wrong here. But in the same time, yeah. I'm thankful to him that he did that. But he did that in a way that he thought he took me and my older brother. Because back then, when I was 5, my youngest brother still he's not there yet. So in that approach of taking his 2 male sons, to see a tough movie, like a movie for men, with violence, with guns, with like action, with bodybuilders, and so this is his way of, and with no sex scenes, and because in our region, watching violence is better than watching. I think in the United States too, the media prefer showing a little. Now I think maybe now things change, but before I remember that they prefer showing violence more than love scene or sex scene. In Europe, it's the contrary. Like in movies in Germany or in France, they show more sex scenes and making love scenes more than violent scenes with guns and with people killing.
That's why I like Europe more.
Yeah. Me too. I prefer the United States more. I feel, and especially New York, this city this is the best city in the world, in my opinion, and because it was like a fantasy city for me. Because when I was a student,
it's a fantasy city for
everyone. So I'm not alone in that. Okay.
Well, but let's take it back a step, actually, because you haven't even sort of described what you do. So tell us a little bit about what type of work, the medium, and all this kind of stuff for the listeners that may not have already looked at your work.
I'm visual artist. I do like painting and drawing, and also video art too. I did like a lot of experimental short films. One of them won like best experimental short film in LA in 2007 in the New York International Film and Movie Festival. it was a festival, like doing many sessions through the United States, like in Miami, in New York, and in LA. With my brother. I did those short films with my older brother, and now I had like a movie, video installation in Lyon when I had my first institutional solo show in Europe, in Lyon. It was between February and July. It ended in July, last July. So I also showed like a video art installation with sound too, with my older brother. I want always to keep my older brother involved with me in what is like movie, film and sound. He worked with me like if I have an idea to do video work or sound work, I work with my older brothers to keep like, because we had a lot of memory together, and we have the same vein, we have the same ambition, and we understand each other. So I want like to share with him also the creative side of us. We share also that side. So I work with painting and do figurative painting. I'm like very respectful, or not. I'm like I admire the masters, the old masters. I don't work like against what the past. I work like with respect with artists that came in the past, like Pablo Picasso, Francis Bacon. There's a Yugoslavian artist. He's dead now. He lived in France. His name is Vladimir Velikovic. In Europe and in France, he's very famous. And also,
I see a little bit of de Kooning in your work as well.
In putting the painting on the canvas, the way he works and the freedom he have when he works. I appreciate the work of de Kooning. A little bit of Basquiat in his like spontaneous, sometimes spontaneous approach, and the way he uses like pop iconography in his. He's very intelligent. He always the way he take decision. He make decisions when he work very quickly. So me also sometimes I borrow that way of work from Basquiat too. So, but the main artists are Francis Bacon and Pablo Picasso.
Well, okay, just continuing on with that, I looked at your some images of your work, and you have some what I would call like moderate scale work, but you also have some very large works. So like how, and then you were just mentioning like working fast and things like this. So I'm wondering, how long does it take you to make a piece on average?
On average, when I work on a piece, let's say, because I don't work on the same piece every day. Just I start a piece, then when I feel that I'm losing the momentum, I'm changing my mood, nothing really interesting is happening, I start a new one. And sometimes the second one like gives me new ideas, and I come back to the first one, and usually I work 3 pieces together at the same time. So let's say 1 month for each piece because after the impulsive and the energetic work, I sit and I work like a mathematician or a movie maker, like working on a scene, like watching like working on a scene in a movie. Everything must be in the right place, right proportion, the meanings behind, the intensity, what people can feel or not feel when they look at it. So I start like the reflection, the thinking about more than like free approach and.
Yeah, your titles are storyboarded, or they look almost storyboarded now. When you look at the paintings and look at the titles that you've chosen, I see a sort of movie arc there, or storyboarding.
Yeah, because there's a lot of influence from American directors from the 90s and late 80s, like Carpenter, Cronenberg, David Lynch,
Yeah.
the first movies of Oliver Stone. So when I was young, I watched all these movies, and I was growing up watching these directors and the work of these directors. So there's some of that in the images that I make.
So here's a random question then, because I know you spent some time in Accra, and there's a whole, it's not Nollywood like in Nigeria, but there's a Ghanaian kind of Hollywood, and there's also these painters that make these wild movie posters, especially from the 90s and the 2000s. Did you see
Yeah, I
any
saw
of that
two or
when you were
three of
there?
them. Yes, I saw two or three of them, and I in my work too. Some of my pieces, I see them as a poster for a movie or for an album, for music, or like for like the cover of an album or something like this. I'm very attached to the things that I liked and I loved, and that had a big impact on my life when I was growing up. I'm very faithful to the things that the art that I was influenced when I was like growing up in high school and early years as a student. So
We all are.
yeah. So I try to give an homage to that period of my life.
Well, it's those impressionable ages that we keep those our entire lives, whether we like it or not. No matter how much we want to not be, holding on to those, they end up sort of just continually repeating themselves throughout our lives.
Yes,
I
yes.
still go back to those. Yeah, same. Like The Clash, and then some more embarrassing stuff like Face to Face.
Yes.
Still,
Yes,
I'll
you
go back
should
and
be
listen
embarrassed
to
by
it.
that.
but it makes me feel like I'm in high school
Yeah,
again, and remember
and
that.
also there's not only also the art stuff that influenced me, that impacted my vision of the world and of our reality. Also the bad things happening around the world back then. I remember when I was a student, first year in Fine Art Institute, the second war on Iraq happened with the Bush administration, the war on terror and all that stuff. So we witnessed that, as Arabs and from that region. Every day you watch the news, and you watch live, like people getting killed, soldiers getting killed, bombs dropped, statistics, about how much dead today and how were killed, and people. It was the first war showed live on TV, as I remember. The second war on Iraq. Al Jazeera back then, just all the day, the war on Iraq, the interviews, the press conferences. They showed in purpose, body decapitated people in the street after the bombing.
Wait, they showed that on TV?
On TV, yeah, of course, in Al Jazeera, of course. So,
well, then I guess Predator's fine.
Yeah, Predator is fine, but yes, of course, Predator was like a premonition.
Well, that stuff would never be shown on an American or even European television
it was in
station.
purpose, to make people scared.
Yeah, propaganda in its own way.
So I remember people in Tunisia, with my father, we eating lunch, and we are watching watching the news, Al Jazeera. But my father put Al Jazeera just to with lunch. So it's like you accept violence through your meal, and so back then when I was a student, it impacted me, and a little bit I lost faith also in the Western civilization. But in that time, I start doubting.
Me too.
I started doubting, doubting all the Western civilization. I told myself, if the top of Western civilization is the United States, and if they allow themselves to do that, so something wrong is there. So I started reading about philosophers that criticized, the history of Western civilization, and I end up falling into Michel Foucault work, and I'm very influenced by Michel Foucault philosophy. I read all his books watched all his interviews, listened to all his conferences, his talks, his workshops, everything about Michel Foucault, because he's like he dismantled the Western how to say it in English, engine of control and power and knowledge and power. And so
panopticanism,
yeah.
things like that too. The
Hold on,
panopticon.
wait. I don't know what that word means. What?
Surveillance.
Oh, I got that. Yeah. Okay.
So also those events impacted also my way of working now also.
I've lived in the United Arab Emirates for a while and taught there actually at a university. And so I'm interested in your experiences as a Muslim trying to get outside of, let's say, the Muslim culture and sort of be part of the greater arts world. Has that been easy for you? Have you, like, I would imagine there's been some times where you felt a bit like a token at some point. So like, how have some of these experiences gone for you?
Just to clarify, I'm from Muslim culture, but I'm not Muslim. Okay.
I should have actually asked that.
I'm not like
as soon as I said it, I was like, "Fuck, I forgot to ask."
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's fair to think like this in the first.
Okay, so you're not Muslim.
I'm not. I started being I was born Muslim, but after reading and growing up, I knew that something's wrong with all the monotheist religion, not only Islam. Judaism and Christianism and Islam are like weird stuff made by man.
Be careful. Yeah. My father's an Episcopal priest.
Me too. My father too. He went to Hajj and to Mecca, and he did prayer 5 times a day at home. So I think that also like was very difficult to deal with while I was at home. Because from the age of 15, 16, a clash happened with my father. And until now, so
no. During the teenage years, you clashed with your parents? That's shocking.
But in the United States, when you clash with your parents, you have an opportunity to go out and to work, and you can afford to form the idea that we have in Tunisia about the American society, that when you are 18,
I'm not sure that's 100%.
When you are like 18 or 20, you can go out from your parents' home and try.
That's true. Legally in the United States, at 18, you are an adult and you can leave.
You can leave. You can, economically speaking, financially speaking, you can find ways to. But in Tunisia, I left home only when I was 29 years old. Imagine.
Wow. Yeah, my parents would have killed me by then.
In Tunisia, it's normal because economically you can't do it. Financially, you can't do it. There's no way to work before some years at some age. I start working as soon as I start teaching. I got married and I had my own home and I lived my parents' home. So it's a problem of possibility, and you can or you can't. Not it's not people. They want to do that, but they can't. Teenager in Tunisia, they want to do that, but they can't.
Yeah, it's more common, I'd say, than in the United States for folks to live with their parents, their family, much longer until you can set up your own home. I know that's the case in South America and other places too. So you definitely have a point, And when I went to college, I spent 2 semesters living in Ireland and then went back just for funsies to just live for a while. And I mention this because it reminds me of that fundamental moment where it shifted away from, I was raised Lutheran, so Christian, and it was a big part of my life. And then I went to Ireland and I was like, oh God, you can really see what problems, organized religions can cause. Yeah. And that was really eye-opening for me. I think I was 18 or 19 years old. But I had to get out of the United States and of rural North Carolina, where I grew up, to see all of that. And so you have a point, I had the opportunity to do that. I was able to raise some of the money to go, and, through, exchange programs, I could go for the same cost of going to university in America. And
I think by art and the music and then being a student in fine arts, because it opens your eyes to a whole other world, like art and history of art. And so you start in philosophy, and so you start like reflecting and thinking about your own heritage, and you start understanding that it's not like it's not true. It's not doesn't meant to be like this, and you have
not what
like,
they told you it was.
Yes,
That's what it was like for me. I was like,
Yeah.
this is not the world that I was meant to believe existed. It all fell apart.
Yeah. And so back to it was easy or not. I think in Tunisia we have like we are not like similar to other region in the Arab world like Egypt or Saudi Arabia, or we are more like France and
Nobody is similar to Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Sorry, my opinion, just to be clear.
Me too. So we are more similar to Italy, South France. So the mentality there is not like very, very religious. You find people like they are like fanatic, but the society is like very pragmatic. He do prayers and go to the mosque, but in the night he drink alcohol and dance, and so it's very schizophrenic.
It sounds like the UAE.
Yeah,
That's good.
It's schizophrenic society. Now I see that they are schizophrenic. It's not a good thing. You have like to choose, but it allows like some overtures. You can go inside and you can like find your way and to exist. So it was not very hard and also fine art is not really under the light of society, So for them, it's like you are doing like a hobby stuff, or it's your hobby, or you are doing like an activity just to be happy, or just to, and they think that you are a fool to work as an artist, and being an artist is like a second grade of citizen. It's not really
Okay. Just to be clear, same opinion in America. Yeah, very few parents are like, oh, I want my kids to grow up to be artists or musicians. Like they want you to be stable and lawyer, doctor, whatever kind of thing. Like, so it's a very normal thing for societies and generally most societies frown upon artists as a career.
Yeah. So maybe the problem is their perception of you when they see you painting or drawing some certain things, like me. I remember my first solo show in Tunisia in 2010. The title of the show was God Male Scarecrow. So it's like it's before the Arab Spring and the Muslim Brotherhood taking power. So I was feeling that our society is like going to a way that would be like a very religious and conservative society before the Arab Spring, and then the Muslim Brotherhood won the elections, and so I painted like nude male bodies with genital in erection, and like in very ambiguous posters, and it was like I wanted like to make a buzz a little bit,
And how did that work for you?
It worked very well. I was surprised.
Okay, good.
I sold all the show, and people in the domain of art, all the art critics and teachers and students and other artists, they were all speaking about me. They were saying that I think we have a new artist, an original artist in Tunisia. And so I started and I made my name from 2010. I was like in the art scene.
That could have easily backfired.
Yeah.
That's
But
why I'm wondering.
I took the risk. I took the risk, to do that, and in a way, I was lucky. And it happened. And I like a big gallery in Tunisia, a respected gallery in Tunisia. They saw my work and they they asked me to work with them, and they took me to Abu Dhabi Art Fair where I met Jeff Koons there. And
I was there at the same
2011. 2011.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was there.
okay. So I had my solo booth there in the section, a new section or something, like a young section.
I know the section you're talking about. Yeah, in the outside pavilion, the not the like the main
Yeah,
structure,
not
but
not in the main structure. Yeah,
the organic
yeah,
structure. one.
yeah.
Yeah. I know
So
exactly
I
what
was
you're
I
talking
was
about.
there, and the whole week, and
Maybe we met. I don't
yeah,
know.
maybe we met
I don't
in
know. I don't
2011.
remember all
So I
that.
met Jeff
Yeah.
Koons, and he came because I was watching him on magazine, So for me, it doesn't matter your opinion on his art, but for me, it's like it's cool.
Yes,
It's
we
cool.
all have strong opinions on
So
his art, one way or
yeah,
another.
but for me, it was
yes.
cool to speak with him and about my art, and so
What did you think of him? My opinion of him, and I'm assuming he doesn't listen to the podcast, so I will tell you, I felt like he was a used car salesman. Like he was very slick and polished and very, I mean, and listening to him, I felt convinced of everything he said.
yeah.
And then later, I was like, wait, that was all bullshit.
Yes, he has the talent of like selling you whatever he wants,
Plus 10
Absolutely.
charisma.
Yeah.
I guess he's very charismatic. I'll give him that.
I don't think he made it all these years, He made it all these years without any talent. I don't think. In a way,
He has a talent.
Anyway,
Unfortunately, most people
yeah.
don't think it's artistic talent.
Yeah, but it's important now. I think, in my opinion, as an artist, like I think as an artist now in our times, you have to know a little bit about marketing and how to speak about your art, how to present yourself, how to present your art. I work a lot on that side too. So.
A lot of artists don't, though. I mean, it's a hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
My husband as well. He's also quiet and doesn't market himself very well, but he's amazing. So, but how do you do it? How do you balance
That's Sean
that?
Richards, by the way. SHUN.
SHAUN.
Richards. AUN, sorry.
So for me, it was like a challenge too, because when I was a child, I was like, I don't know the word in English, but the pronunciation, I having hard times to pronounce some letters and some words. So in school, I was very shy. I didn't want to answer my teachers, and so for me, like doing this kind of broadcast or interviews or TV, or for me is challenging for that little boy back then. And so like you evolved as a person, and like you made it, and now you can speak and you can like express yourself, and without any kind of real problem.
So do you think it's the success that you have had till now that's made you push yourself or feel more comfortable?
Yes. Because in the end, I told myself, people will look at my art first, and they know that I am doing something interesting. So in a way, if I had some problem to speak, it's okay. It's part of the charm of the artist and the myth of the artist.
It is indeed, yeah. Now, going back to your whole sort of like transition. So, in your childhood, you had this sort of idea of America and American culture, and now at this exact moment, you are actually in America. And so, I'm interested in, did it live up to your expectations? Did it not live up to your expectations? Like, how did the comparison between the dream versus the reality compare?
I think, of course, it's not the same like experience as I thought but in the same time, I still like a child in Disneyland. I still look at America and New York and LA with the eyes of that young man and that boy. So I don't want like to kill the myth and to kill the fantasy, because it allows me to believe in some other like success and make my ambitions bigger and be more ambitious. And I always see the part that I like of America, because I don't really live here. If I stayed maybe for 2 years or 3 years, I'll be more neutral and I will give you like real opinion. But now I come for 1 month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months. So still, and I'm working every day. So I'm like fulfilling a dream, like working in New York, living and working in New York at the same time. It was, when I was a student, it was like a dream for me.
I'm almost 50. It's still my dream,
Yeah.
but go on.
Yeah. So when I was a student, I always told myself, if I succeeded one day, it will be like having a studio in New York, like being an established artist in New York and having my own studio there, and like meeting and living and like people from New York, and going back to Tunisia, of course, because I have a big responsibility there. Now with like the opportunities that I have and you can say the success that I have in Tunisia, many young students and young artists, they look up after me, they look up to me, and they see that it's possible if you live in Tunisia, you are based in Tunisia, and you study in Tunisia, and you work in Tunisia, to go also over the borders and like do projects outside of Tunisia, and also earn money also with your work and living like a decent life in Tunisia with your art, because there it's a dream, it's not possible. The market is very small and the opportunities are very like few opportunities for many artists, despite we have like a great art scene, generation of artists, not an art scene, like 5-6 artists from Tunisia. Now they work with galleries outside of Tunisia. They did like the Venice Biennale, Lyon Biennale, the Villa Médicis. They are like acquisitions from museums, from foundations around the world. So our generation that born between 1980 and 1987, 88, it's like a good really successful generation. And now the young students, they look up to us, and they, for example, not as a part of vanity by myself, but this year and the past year, I was like the most cited artist in the research in Tunisia, in academic research in Tunisia, because of the things that I'm doing, the shows and my work and the originality of my work. So many students that they are doing the PhD, they reference me, the most referenced artist in fine arts now in Tunisia. And some schools they ask me to come like doing talks with the students to give them like hope, because the situation in Tunisia is very bad. The economic situation, political situation is not good. So people lost hope during those past 10 years. So they wanted like to give a booster for the students, so they can like take seriously their studies.
This actually reminds me. So you mentioned studying in Tunisia. You're working on a PhD yourself right now, right?
Yeah.
So is that sort of you want to give?
Why?
Yeah, why?
No,
Why?
I stopped working on the PhD like 4 years ago.
Okay.
Because I couldn't do it, with my career and with the engagement that I have with my work as an artist.
And a child.
A child and a family, and so it's very. And
Yeah, we're not presuming you're actually married. We just know you have a child.
I'm married to.
Okay, great.
Okay. It's
Didn't want to be
complicated.
presumptive.
Yeah.
It's complicated, but still married.
Isn't it always? Yeah.
But I think every marriage is complicated. There's no.
Agreed.
I'm on my second.
Yeah. So I'm like
Yeah.
in transition. I'm in a transition situation.
Eternal.
Okay.
Boy, that's marriage also.
Yeah.
But all right, I want to go back. Actually, you talked about like marketing and things like this. I'm utterly fascinated by that because I will fully admit, and Amanda's husband would probably also be interested to know as well. Like, what is it that you find that works well? Because I, much like many artists in the world, are fail miserably at it. Now, maybe it's because of my own insecurities, my own fears, my own whatevers. But like, what is it that you have been able to find that works well for you?
I borrowed style of communication from where.
Don't say Jeff Koons.
No. Not from the art field, not from the artistic field. Like from
Good call.
From movie stars like The Rock, for example, or athletes like great athletes. How they you have to make your life interesting for people. So they want also with your art, they want also to know, with keeping a little bit of mystery and ambiguity also. But you show, but you don't show all. You have to be professional on Instagram. For me, Instagram made a big difference. Even some galleries, 2 galleries, they contacted me because they saw my work on Instagram and via Instagram. So in my way, I want in the feeds section, I keep it professional. Always like anything personal, only my work, my exhibitions, the events, all around my work. But in the stories section, I try to keep it cool and about the artist more, going to the gym, traveling, what I eat, what I wear, the attitude of the artist, creating like a character a little bit. It's
just to be clear for the listeners who cannot see you, you're a very attractive man as well.
Thank
Definitely
you.
very fit as well.
Yeah.
So I just want to make that clear because nobody can see you. So
thank you.
Yeah.
So yes,
Just
and I go to
throwing
the
that
gym.
out there.
For example, I try to tell people that it's okay to be an artist and to be also fit and to look after yourself and to eat healthy. To drink also, but no drugs. No, I don't do drugs. I don't do weed. I don't smoke weed. I just drink.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm far more of a drug addict than a drinker.
I drink, but not a lot too. I want to keep myself healthy so I can enjoy life more and also keep working in intense with that same intensity every year. When even growing up, I want to keep the same intensity and being present with my mind and my body.
Amanda, would you like to share notes about fitness? Because the two of you are very fitness oriented.
Yeah. No, I feel the same. I mean, there's something about, it's not control, but it's sort of about contouring my life the way that I want it to be, and also being present in my body and in my space. And it always gets my energy going in a way that feels grounded and centered. And then I can go and focus my energies because I've woken my body and my mind up by conditioning it and training. I don't know. I think that's sort of what it does.
Yes.
I think for my husband, he also works out quite a lot. But he also models a lot for his own paintings. So I think that he's also trying to keep his body in a fit enough shape where he can be in his own paintings. He's the cheapest model he knows. So I was wondering that was some of your work, because you have a lot of pieces of the body, and I was wondering where your source material is for that.
My source material is very tough sports like American football, rugby, and also soccer. So I choose the models from pictures from those sports.
Wait, you call it soccer?
Of course, for the American audience.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
in
football.
Europe it's football. But to make it clear for our American audience, I know that it's called soccer here. So
Just to be clear, I live in Prague,
okay.
by the way.
Okay.
You have a pretty
So you
international
don't
audience.
have to be all American.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and also I'm fascinated by the world of bodybuilding too. Like for me, Arnold Schwarzenegger is like a role model for me. So it's a little bit contradictory for an artist to say that, but in a way, as a person, he was very successful in his field. He was like the top of the world in discipline. He believed in himself. He came to America and he fulfilled his dream. I think he has something to say when for a career or for to give you an advice, or even if he's a bodybuilder or became a governor. But as a person, as a person, you can like get inspired by. And as I told you, I'm not ashamed to say that I'm faithful to that little boy Thameur as age of 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, when I was like, for me Arnold is like the man to be,
Well, it's an interesting, I don't know, sort of stereotype, I guess, about artists that we don't care about these things.
Yeah.
That I mean, I know lots of creative people. I'm not even going to just say artists, but like musicians, authors, all kinds of different who are incredibly conscientious about their fitness. But there's this perception in the world that artists are lazy, sloven, and don't care about these
And
things.
even philosophers. For example, Albert Camus, he was like playing football and he liked watching football. He went to the stadiums and like followed his team. Also, Jacques Derrida, when he was still like a young man, he played football in Algeria until he left for France. So in a way, being fit is also a classical approach of life, like Romans and people from Greece, and like they were like wise people, and at the same time they like to be fit and to be like pretty and to be like attractive, and
well, Matthew Barney was an
yeah,
Abercrombie and Fitch model.
yeah, and he played football too, and so I appreciate his work. He's one of the artists that I like. The contemporary artist that I like is Matthew Barney, and an French Algerian artist is Adel Abdesmad. He's like in Europe, and he showed in 2007, 2008 with David Zwimmer in Manhattan, in Chelsea. I remember visiting New York in 2007, and I saw he did like an aeroplane like twisted or a big, very large skeleton like flying. He's Algerian. He left Algeria after the dark 10 years of Islamism, and he was like he almost killed, and because he was a teacher in fine art in Algeria, he left for Lyon, and then in France he became like, now in Europe, even in the United States, they know him. Adel Abdesmad. He's like, for me, is the contemporary artists that I like the most, and I'm a fan like of their works. Matthew Barney, I remember since I was a student, I discovered his work, like the Chris Master cycle movies, and after that, Drunk Restraints, and I know he's married with Bjork, and so I know. I
don't believe they're technically married.
Yeah.
They're a long-term couple.
They're Euro married.
Yeah.
In their what's it called? Like it's not in
domestic partnership.
Yeah, domestic partnership, something like that. Yeah. So like over like 10 years, you have all legal rights of a marriage without actually having to get married.
Domestic partnership. I don't know. Sean and I talk about marriage as being something you should renew every year anyway.
Yeah.
It should be a renewable agreement.
Yeah, of course, yes. It's better like this.
Yeah, you want to keep it going?
I'm not sure
do.
how I feel about that marriage position. I mean, but I guess it would keep this you wouldn't get lazy.
Yeah.
No, you have a State of the Union. How you feel? I mean, we're very happy. So
my anniversary was just last week, so I've got to think about that.
Happy anniversary! Ours was just August 15th, 4 days ago.
Ours is August 10th.
Happy birthday to both of you.
Yeah, to our relationships. Yeah.
And when was your anniversary?
Me, May 13th.
May 13th. Okay. All right. Now, you brought up. Are you a teacher also?
Yes, in the university, in the Institute of Fine Art in Tunis, the capital. The main institute in Tunisia, the whole Tunisia. So since 2009, I was teaching until now. It's more than 10 years now, 12 years of more teaching in the university. So it's really it's not easy, because the situation, it's not easy for a teacher in Tunisia. You don't have all the tools available. The infrastructure is like very weak, very poor for art. I mean, if you go to the medicine school, it's one of the best in the world. Tunisian doctors are one of the best in the world. They work here in the United States. In France, the majority of doctors in France are Tunisian. So, but for art, it's a social mindset. They think that art is something that you can avoid, and you can do without art. You can do it without, a society can do it without art. It's more important to go to the mosque than going to see an exhibition or see.
Just to be clear, I've taught at 6 different schools. I'm a professor myself, and art is always the bastard stepchild of every university.
Yes.
Like we are underfunded, underallocated, we get the least amount of. I've noticed we're also always tucked in the farthest corner of the university as well. We're never in a prominent building. We're always like at the back far corner. They're like, oh yeah, back there we also have art, but don't worry about them.
The same, yes, but. So it's becoming harder and harder each year, So I don't know.
Agreed.
I think that one day I will stop teaching if my career will I have to be more present outside of Tunisia or traveling, or won't allow me to be 100% focused on teaching. So it will be a bad thing for students. Their teacher is not So I did that last year because I spent most of the year traveling, so my teaching was not really cool with them. So my student loves me. So, but I have responsibility too. So the day that I feel that I can't do it anymore, I will give my place to someone who is focused 100% on that job.
Yeah, that shows integrity. If you can't really dedicate yourself to the students in a meaningful way, then you shouldn't necessarily.
But some of other teachers, they told me, no, Thameur, being at the institute, seeing you at the institute gives them hope, and you can it's better. You here half of the time. It's better than you're not here. So,
I disagree. I will die in the classroom.
So me too.
That's my dream.
Me too.
I want to die either in my studio, classroom, or in a private situation with my wife. But those are my 3 that I want to die in.
Look, your wife is very lucky. You love her very much.
I do, yes. So, but those are my 3 hierarchical places of my desire to die.
I've never thought about that.
Me too.
I just don't want to die. So
I don't want to die. Me too. I'm afraid of dying.
Well, you said you're afraid of injury, even. So yes, I would expect you to be afraid of dying.
Of
but yet your work seems to be a lot about death and sort of
This is why my work is like this, because I'm afraid of those things. Though maybe is a therapy too for me. I'm understanding myself through my own art. It's a process of understanding myself, because, for example, I believe that artists are not here to give answers. One of the philosophers that I like too is Slavoj Žižek. If you have an idea who's Slavoj Žižek, so
yes,
I like
fan.
him.
I'm a fan. Yes.
I'm a fan too of Slavoj. So he said the good thing, not the problem, but the matter is to ask the right questions, not to give answers to questions. So with my art, I'm trying to ask the right questions. It's a process of asking questions about our life, our existence, about identity, about this avatar we have to exist, about power, the people in charge, the power in knowledge and power, religion, sex, desire. Also, now I'm trying to dig a little bit in Jacques Lacan, writings, and and methods, and how he analyze our behaviors as human beings, and gender relationship, our fantasies, and it's intriguing for me. So it keeps me like alive and motivated to tell myself it's always something unknown that I don't know. I have to know. I have to wake up in the morning and go to the studio and work, so I can search on these themes, and it's a game.
For the people that couldn't see Matt, he very much perked up when you mentioned sex and desire. I just have to
Absolutely.
know that.
Huge fan of everything sexual and desirable.
Yeah, I think everything is sexual, and Freud, he said that, I believe, human beings, but they, with all the
That's a very non-Muslim position for you to take, by the way. Just to be...
On the contrary, Islam is all about sex, but sex for men, not for women. Everything is like running around.
Did you say? I'm sorry. Did you say sex with men or sex
for men? About men.
Okay.
Sexuality of men. So in Islam, for males, everything is allowed. Of course, homosexual relationship not, but in heterosexual, in straight, sexuality, everything is allowed with your partner. Nothing is like forbidden.
Well, that's because the partner can't say no.
So
in that.
I don't agree with that, but just I'm telling you, So, and even male can have like 12 women and at the same time,
in the United Arab Emirates, I can't remember whether they could have 3 wives or 6 wives, but they could have multiple wives.
And other than wives, he can have also slaves, like sexual slaves. He pay to. So it's all about sex in Islam. So he knew they knew that to be in for males to keep you in position to be in charge and to empower, you have to give them all the freedom they want in sex. So it's tricky. It's a tricky approach.
Amanda, as a woman's perspective, anything on that?
Speechless. No, I actually, it reminded me of something I read in an interview with Thameur that I actually was just reading earlier today. That you mentioned that women are already emancipated. They're waiting for men to elevate themselves. And I was like, boom, that is it.
Even in Tunisia, and speaking about Tunisian women, they are ahead of Tunisian males, and men, in sexuality, also in everything. So, but they are trapped in a social device, a structure that allows men to be in charge and in control. So you are like.
I'm sorry, allows men?
Yeah, allows men. Yeah. This is the law there, and the law of the state law, and also the law of the society. So in a way, it's a bad thing, and I'm even in my work, I'm trying to not change things, but to speak about that, that toxic masculinity and
bring up the questions, not giving answers.
Yeah. So why it has to be like this? But I think even in what I noticed by traveling and speaking with also Western people, still it's the same, but they know how to hide it too. Because even sexuality for women, it depends on your partner. If your partner is, even if he's French or American or Swedish, if he's selfish or he's violent, or I don't know, he's macho, or he won't allow you to be, even if you live and you are with. So sometimes you can find a Tunisian partner or an Arabic partner. He's from Islamic culture, but he can be more open, and he will let the woman lead, and it's a personal sexuality is still personal, between two person and two bodies. So you never know what happens inside the room between two people. So.
It's also true. I I have so many thoughts right now. I think one of the things that I wanted to say in response to the conversation was that I think men are, and again, we're talking on binaries here, so there's a whole spectrum of sexuality and gender and all of that, but I think men are afraid of the power that we women have, and when you're afraid of something, you seek to control it, or maybe understand it, but in that way kind of keep it contained. And I think that is true with women's sexuality as well. And I think that's why we have some of these problems. Matt is making the funniest look at me. It's just
I'm just sitting back in my chair and letting this happen.
I think it's the way the societies are built. If in the Western world, still the structure is still Christian, still religious. The structure still,
yes.
religious structure, like family. It's a concept. It's like a religious concept. Having a family, marriage, all the many concepts coming from religion. And now you want like to act in a atheist or free way in a structure that it's built for from other times, from the past. So it creates problems. Still, it will create problems until the end of time if we don't change the structure itself.
Yeah.
So we have to invent. We have to invent new ways of building a relationships, or so it will be like for women. It's easy. It will be like normal to be a woman. So you don't have like to prove yourself to be a woman and to get acceptance from men.
I think that points to something that's really important, which is these are all human constructs. It's all invented. And so why can't we reinvent it a different way?
Well, there are plenty of cultures throughout the world that don't have organized religion in it, where partners are shared, children are raised by communities, like this kind of stuff. So like all of these kinds of sort of general constructs that we think are the norm actually all started with religion and then just got accepted as the norm, but that doesn't make them the norm. It's not human nature to have all these kinds of constructed things of like one gender being dominant over another, the need for marriage, the need for monogamy, all these kinds of things. That's all constructed by social choices, basically. And so it's not a necessary thing. I'm not sure what this has to do with the podcast, but anyways, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm open to all that stuff. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, coming from a background where my father's a priest, I understand why it was done at a certain time period, but I think that certain time period has ended.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree.
I disagree, though, in some ways, and I think that humans want to order the world and construct it in a way. So I just think that in terms of religious ordering of the world, that it gets a little bit too fundamentalist or essentializing.
I think that's ego, though.
Tell me more.
Well, I mean, I think the human ego is the thing that gets in the way of everything. Whether it's religion, love, your relationships with loved ones, your art, whatever it is. Like the ego is the thing that it can either be very beneficial or very detrimental to any of those sort of, I'll call it practices. I hate calling things practices because we're actually good at these things. We're not practicing. But anyways, so like the ego gets in the way of a lot of these things. I mean, look at, I mean, here, this is my old philosophical thing, like communism. On paper, communism is magnificent, yes. But once you put the human ego into it, it will never succeed in actual reality. So like there's a huge difference between theory, concept, ideas, and then once the human ego is placed into it, the reality of how that is accomplished in physicality. Everything from a interpersonal relationship all the way up to being an artist and being a practicing creative person.
I think
that's my soapbox for the day, and I'm standing on it.
I like it.
I think our need to be in charge and have power over the other. This is, I think it's in our nature, like to trying to control the other. start with your partner, then with your children, then at work, and so it's like it's in our nature. I think if the concept of human nature itself is like a blurry concept, but to start with the human nature is in human nature. I think we feel that need to get in control of everything and to have power on everything. So,
I kind of get that. One of my favorite things in the whole world is being right.
yeah.
When Sean tells me you're right, I'm like, oh. Say it again.
Well, my parents, when I was a kid, I'd always say, like, you know what I really want? I want to have, like, control over my life. And my dad would always look at me with this look like, you think you have control.
Yeah, but you never have control.
No.
We are like determined creators, you know. We are already like determined by the environment we live in, by the place we are born, by our parents, by the economic situation, by the weather, by everything, by our body itself, by the shape we have.
Agreed. Now, okay, one last big question I have is you brought up the idea that you feel an obligation to go back to Tunisia to teach back there. Like, for me, from where I grew up, I have no love lost for where I grew up, and I feel no obligation to go back there and do anything for those fuckers. So, you know, what about that sort of cultural aspect makes you feel that need to go back there? Because in many ways, I admire it and I respect it, but I just don't personally have it.
I think it's because it came by itself, not by choice. So now with the stuff I'm doing and the success that I have now, I don't know what tomorrow brings. This is like tricky career. So one day you are successful, you don't know. But now, as I am now, I feel the obligation, the responsibility, not the obligation. Nothing.
That's a much better word. I apologize for saying obligation.
The responsibility to give back, not to the younger generation, not to people like my generation. No. To the people that are like, because I believe that this was my mentality when I was like a student, that I wanted to succeed, I had ambitions, I can find like some students having the same mindset. So when they see like a Tunisian artist is working outside of Tunisia and having success, so it will help them like to believe in themselves, and like changing the life of one or two or three person is amazing for me, you know. So I believe in that, you know. I believe to be like to help, and also spending my money in Tunisia is better than spending my money in. To be honest, also
exchange rate's great.
Yeah. So I'm with the sales and everything. I'm living like, and Tunisia is a very beautiful country. You have to come one day. It's like
love to.
It looks like more like south of Italy, more, you know, these so warm weather, beach and good food, welcoming people. So when you have money there, you can live like a nice life. And
just to be clear, though, I made myself sound like a horrible teacher, so I want to clarify on my whole position. It's that I just have no love lost to go back to the area I grew up with. I love teaching. I love my students. I love passing knowledge on. So just in case people think that I like have no caring for my teaching practice and my students, I do. Just I don't need to do it where I grew up.
I did not intend to come back to North Carolina, and I've been here for 4 years now, back again. But I think there's a difference there, especially with some of the other artists kind of coming from the African continent that I've worked with or talked to. A lot of them do want to come back because a lot of them have left, especially the more successful artists. I hate to say that, but they very intentionally come back to give back to their community and try to develop within the countries that they originate from. And I just don't see that happening as much, and I could be wrong, with American artists, because they don't tend to leave the US as much. So yeah, agree or disagree with me, please. But I've seen that much more in the Africa-based artists that I've talked to than American ones.
Because there you know that there is no opportunities, real opportunities for the young students and for the young artists. So when you have those opportunities, these opportunities in your life, and you feel blessed and lucky, and it's hard work also, but same time it's also luck. So why not giving back and giving hope to others? It's and I'm like and I do that with young artists, and I also I buy art from from young artists, like only women artists. So I want to encourage because we need women to speak by themselves. I don't feel I'm allowed to speak about woman freedom, woman emancipation, woman sexuality, woman in politics, because I'm a male. I'm not in the best place to. It's very masculine and bad approach, to speak about women. So I help artist women to be successful, so they can speak for themselves and for their community.
Well, it's that savior complex that men have, that we feel like we should speak on their
Yeah,
behalf.
I don't
We
speak
got
on
this.
behalf of women. Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no idea
of course, we
what
have
their
no
lives
idea.
are like.
No, I like that. They made my heart grow a little bigger. I was like, oh, good. You're only buying from women artists. That makes me really happy.
Yeah.
I will say though, with a lot of artists like you that are going back and saying that there aren't the opportunities that are maybe elsewhere in the world, I'm seeing more of that happening, and more residencies being set up, and more like 154 in Morocco, more galleries opening up. It's starting to kind of get that momentum, and it takes people like you doing that and modeling good behavior and purchasing art by young artists and lifting them up. So I hope young women artists. I hope to see that happening more and more.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I've seeing it happen in Ghana, Senegal, Morocco,
and me too. I also the first gallery that took me outside of Tunisia, it's a Tunisian gallery. They showed me in Dubai, in London, in Abu Dhabi, in Morocco, in the United States, here in New York in 2018. So in 154 art fair. So I was also helped by Tunisian, from the art scene. So why not giving back? And also, for example, we have a great foundation in art foundation in Tunisia. It's in the MENA region. It's one of the well-known foundation, the KLF Foundation, Kamel Lazar Foundation, and the book is out now in libraries. You can order it. They financed a monography about my work and about myself. So it's Tunisian. It's money from Tunisia. So it's published with the Skira, if you know the house edition.
Yeah, I published a book with them. Okay, good to know.
Skira,
wow, congratulations to both of you for having books published.
Yeah, it's out in Paris and.
Well, I'll have our library buy a copy, and hopefully we can put that link on the podcast site. And
absolutely.
Send it to me.
We will put a link to it in the show notes.
Yeah. Well, and my big question was also going to be, when can I visit? Because I want that.
Well, I think that's up to your schedule, Amanda.
Well, I'm going to 154 in Morocco, so in Marrakesh. So maybe I'll just stay a little longer. Come by, come over. It's not too far.
All right. And last thing I generally try to wrap up the podcast with, actually, is there any sort of advice you can give to the next generation? Something that to encourage them or whatever. Generally from your personal experiences. So not so much of keep working kind of motivational things, but some actual experiences you had that can be helpful to them to help with their careers.
I think first is it's the usual advice is to have a dream. It's mandatory, to have a dream, a small flame, and you keep making it grow and grow and grow, but with hard work. And you have like to be contemporary of your times. You know the tools, the right tools to use to make your art like seen and visible by the right people, and work hard and never like back down and make step back. Even in the years that you feel doubt, so you still work, because it's like it's more a life. It's a life path more than you don't take it as a job. You don't perceive it as a job you will do and you will earn money for your efforts. No, it's an adventure, and it's a risk to take, and you have to be responsible of that risk until the end.
Okay, wait. One little question I have, simply because Amanda is on here. There are different people, different artists that have sort of different studio practices, we'll call it. Like me, I'm very much of I wait until I'm inspired or wait until I have some reason to go in my studio. So my studio might sit empty for months until I find something to go in and do. Whereas her husband, Sean, he sits in his studio every day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. because it's his job. And so even if he's not actually physically painting, he's researching or writing grants or doing whatever. And this is a very different sort of choices that different creative people make. What kind of sort of practice do you do?
Me, I go to my studio almost every day. It's like from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m., 7 p.m. So of course, also because I'm responsible of the agreements and the engagement I have with the galleries I work with. So in a way, I'm not obliged, but I have to be on my studio to work. So because I have work to do, and it became like my natural daily life, daily routine, to be at the studio, to work, to go to the gym first, then to go to the studio and spend the day there, and then go back home. So this is my routine, and I have to do that because of my engagement with the events that I have, and I have to fulfill, those engagements.
Any last questions, Amanda?
No, I was just going to say I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say the same thing, that Sean very much structures his life, his artistic life, like it is a job, and that's how he keeps his momentum going. And but so for me, I think it's just maybe variations on the same theme, but I like what you were saying about it being like a path, like a way of living. And I think that there's just maybe ways that humans consider jobs as almost being a negative thing, that someone else is telling you what to do, whereas Sean or maybe some other artists view the job as the one that they've given themselves to do, the work that they want to do. So then it's work, but with a different twist,
Yeah.
more positive light maybe. So I don't necessarily see what you're saying as being opposite, but variations on a theme.
Well, like my wife is an accountant, and in general, like most people in the world, when they think of the word job, they think of something that has an apples or sort of A to B thing. So like you go in, you do your job, and you get this amount of money for that amount of effort. Whereas the arts in general, any form of creativity, has nothing to do with that kind of structure. And so again, we're trying to fit into some societal thing, but we don't fit in.
I think it's how you manage your time. You take it as a job very seriously. You create a routine. This is what I meant by. But in the same time, your perception of the thing is more like free. It's your life. It's your dream. It's your ambition. It's a path. It's an adventure. And so this is what I meant about it's not, there's no contradiction between the two approaches.
Agreed.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you, both of you, for the opportunity, and I'm very glad and happy to chat with you, and hope one day in person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'll see you
Yes.
in September. I'm
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah, of
so
course, yeah.
I'll see you then.
I will come to Prague so to see you.
Marvelous. Thank you for listening to the complete conversation. We would appreciate it if you would share the podcast with your friends, family, coworkers, studio mates, anyone with an interest in the arts and creative endeavors. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community is at the core of our mission for this podcast. They can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. The Wise Fool Art Podcast is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.